change. You have a huge recruitment and talent challenge in this country. So I think the question we're going to try and discuss at the leaders' debate is, can we meet this demand? Is it fast enough? What do we need to do to go further? So just to get our voices in the room, I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to start with Dr. Kidwai, just to say, just comment. Good. We're going to do sort of like a scoring system. So how are we doing? Just comment on the status of India's progress so far. No big speeches yet, but just how do we mark our card? Good, average, could do better. India.
I would say good, at the same time could do better.
Really? Okay. We're going to come to that. Salil?
I'm not going to disagree with the DG, absolutely.
Oh my God. I will can't give you a Chinese, one of those Chinese words. So, go on. Is that it?
Let me just make the comment. For so much of my career, I've always, as a proud Indian American, being here in India and then growing up in the US, have always asked when India's moment would come, okay? When India's aviation market will achieve what we all know it can in terms of potential. And I was always told the day will come someday. I've been saying for the last 2 years now that someday is today. Someday has very much arrived in India, and that's why all of us are on stage with such excitement.
Okay. Thank you. Now this is what we wanted. Ashish, what's good?
Below
average, could do better.
Below average.
Below average. Just quickly, why? Which bit is below average in your? Which?
The size of the opportunity what India offers to us is where we stand. So 2005, very quickly, Captain Gopinath made a statement of a 1 rupee ticket for the end traveler, and 20 years later we haven't met the dream. So this will have to go up.
Okay, fantastic. Campbell.
I'm still shocked at the wrong rupee ticket. I think a good start. I think the ingredients are in place, the policies in place, the investment is coming. But you look at the size of the remaining opportunity to tackle. The propensity to travel in India by air is 1/5 that of China. And so I think when you look at how far the domestic aviation market has come, it's come a long way. But compared to where it has left to go, it's really only tapping 30-40% of its opportunity.
So could do better, but doing better. Toby.
So from a manufacturing, innovation, design perspective, engineering perspective, there's massive opportunity and we're doing great on that curve. Everyone in India. We're at the beginning of a massive curve.
Doing great. Great, okay. No? Well, yeah, that's fantastic. Jürgen, you're coming in new to India. What's your outsiders at the moment? In a year you'll be dressed like Peter and Campbell, you'll be with Salil, you'll be Indianified, maybe I will as well if I do this next year, but what's your observation?
I'm not sure if I fully count as an outsider, as I was supporting the manufacturing growth the last 5 years, and what I can say, the growth trajectory is not even good, it's excellent. So really incredible. The place where we are now, yes, could be higher, but with the growth trajectory, with the elements we have in place, I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, thank you, fantastic. Barrett, you've got the last word just on this little section.
I do.
Good, average, could do better. A bit like being at school.
Let me concentrate on the MR aspect, which is what we do. I must admit that we could do a lot more. But to temper that, we could do a lot more. I must officially congratulate the Ministry of Civil Aviation. We received a gift last night of the new proposed changes of policy, which really sets the cat amongst the pigeons. Massive effort by every department, DGCA, BCAS, MOCA, AI, to make all the historical archaic rules go away permanently. Something we've been working with the government for a long time. So given the MRO scale, which is still extremely small, I see a massive growth happening from here on. And when I say massive, I'm saying some organizations could hit triple-digit growth rates within a year or two. Of course, the challenge of infrastructure needs to be met. We need more brick and mortar. But it's also the reason why perhaps Air India, Indigo are investing in MRO. So MRO, I see a big growth curve. It'll be specific to organizational strength, because these regulations also need you to be a lot more competitive on a global scale. But I think we're up to it.
So it looks like we're breaking news here. There's been, so just repeat what you said at the start about the government.
So policies that impact MRO, which we have been pursuing and working.
But these are
they've been officially published. This last time we received a letter, but these have been cleared up by the Ministry of Civil Aviation.
So
Yes, it's a big ticket.
you're nodding. Tell me what your thought is.
So look, I think MRO, there's a whole panel on MRO tomorrow,
Yes.
so I don't want to steal its thunder. But MRO policy advocacy has been a focus not just for the MROs. It's been a focus for Boeing and Airbus as well, because we need MRO to be liberalized and to grow in India so that our customers can be successful. This is what Peter was talking about bringing some of this work back into India.
Thanks. What do you want to comment about this? I mean, it sounds really good.
So I took this charge about 9 months back, and the first thing which I told my team was that we are at a cusp of a huge growth, and unfortunately we have the same set of people to work with. So either we cut down on the regulation and all that and make things easy, or we have to do double or 3 times the work than what we are doing. And fortunately, we are working as a team. I have to tell you, we have more than 200 civil aviation regulations, and in the course of 6 months, I think we've revised almost 100 plus. And that we've done with the industry, not as DGC alone. On each of these, we've discussed with the industry where are the bottlenecks, what we can do to help you. And we are doing all that. And this is also accompanied with a lot of automation. So and you see, from 400 airplanes to close to 900 now, going to 3,000. These are things which need a lot more work and almost twice the number of airports, and you're still number 3 in the world. But then, as Peter said, our per capita travel is one of the lowest. So even if that becomes double from 0.5 to 1, which means everything is doubled. So you look at where we are going, and I think with the right policies, we are on the right track.
I see quite a lot of nodding going on, which makes me quite pleased. Who's nodding away? Peter or Carol? What do you want? Respond, please.
Well, I think that the numbers which were mentioned, they require a lot to be done. I think most important is that the mindset is very much aviation as a force for good. And you were earlier making some comparison to other parts of the world. I think the Indian government is truly embracing aviation as part of the economic and social progress of the nation itself. And if you embrace that, then whether 100 regulations are changed today, or 110 or 90, becomes less relevant. The direction is, I think, most important. And at least in the 3 years I'm here, I've witnessed quite a few regulations which were of a certain size, and they're of a different size today, a smaller size. And clearly we still have discussions about we should change this, we should change that. And that's normal, and that will continue to have. But the mindset is, if all the planes which are ordered for the country need to operate here, we need to start doing things differently. So my answer to your first thought was, it's taking off, but as it's taking off, Indian aviation will still need to do work on the people side, on the regulatory side, on the infrastructure side, and I think most important, and I think this is just a great example of the MRO, is that all these things are being implemented now, allowing us to move forward and allowing us to do aviation what it's best, serving as a force for good for the country.
Campbell, do you want to amplify?
Well, I fully agree. One of the things I've observed over the 3 years is progression toward an outcome orientation. And I think that's across government, particularly in the DGC and the ministry. That it's no longer a continuation of the way things have done in the past because that's the way we've done it or the way we've done them here. It is policy making with a view to a specific outcome. And perhaps it's being a little bit forced by the sheer number of aircraft that are coming, the sheer scale of the opportunity. but it's very welcome, and we can see the progress happening. I think the other element that we now need to progress to is that because of this supportive policy, because of this acknowledgement and the enthusiasm for the catalytic role that aviation plays in social and economic development, we've seen massive improvement in the airport infrastructure and the number of airports. We've seen privatization and consolidation of the aviation industry, and as a consequence, massive investment in the fleet. We still need to see some improvement in the airspace. There are projects happening, but that's going to be potentially a constraining factor. But overall, needs to be coordination. The secret ingredient in places in the Gulf, in Southeast Asia, and the big hubs in Europe, is bringing all of these parts together in a harmonious way, including policy and regulation. And I think that's probably the next phase of India's evolution to fully maximize its potential, is bringing all these parts, which are individually progressing very well, but bringing them together into the symphony that actually is a vibrant, growing, customer-orientated and commercially successful aviation ecosystem.
You put that really well, Campbell. But what does government need to do to make that symphony work in tune, work together, or what?
The ecosystem can only move as fast as its slowest part. Right. And if the constraint is airports, terminals, if the constraint is aircraft or MRO or training or customer facilitation, it's going to be held back and be inefficient. So individually, we can't solve this problem. Collectively, it must be solved. And really, the only party that is capable of doing it collectively is our government, regulator, ministry.
So we've heard about the initiatives that you've been discussing, that we've talked about. Is government really committed to this? I mean, it's committed to it, it's not the right question. Is it going to do it in the time scale that you need in your businesses to succeed?
You see, governments work in a very, I would say, classic fashion. There's a time for everything. And I think this is the time for aviation. And it is not only the government, it is the ecosystem which forces the government to work. And with the economy growing, you see, for example, we saw a bottleneck with the MRO sector. Because we need more maintenance, more repairs, more such activities within the country, because we see that the turnaround times are affected and things like that affected. So you have to do it. You don't have a choice. Because of your actions, the sector is getting affected, and you realize that, and you don't want to be an impediment. So it's not a matter of choice. It's something which we have to do, and we are committed. And thankfully, there is support all along. That's a big thing.
Support within government?
Within government, up to the highest levels, yeah.
Barrett, do you want to comment?
I want to qualify what my DG has said. It's the first time I've experienced, and for many people who know me here, I've been an MRO warrior for a long time. And what we have actually achieved in these last 3 months, we've been working on for 10 years. It was a simple note that came to us 3 months ago. You guys, an inherent part of that team. And as usual, we had all the enthusiasm and energy to go and progress that. So it was Indigo, Air India, ASIL, all of us were partners. First time a joint team between industry and government. And in 3 months, we have gotten a clear-cut response. This is done. So it's absolutely phenomenal. So I think the government is fully committed. I cannot deny that.
Thank you, Barrett.
So I think what you're seeing is that when industry and government are aligned, things can actually move very quickly in India. If you go back over the last 5 to 7 years at different things that have come into place. So in I think March or February of 2020, the reduction of the MRO taxation under GST down to 5%, the reduction of MRO customs duties, the rationalization of royalties, at least at the government-owned airports, on MRO. And that's just on MRO. Somebody asked a question earlier about leasing and Cape Town. The setup of Gift City over the last 10 years and the normalization of taxes there to be able to try to compete with Ireland and Singapore. Then the Cape Town aircraft objects bill that was passed this year to try to bring India's asset treatment of airplanes to global norms. As Peter noted, the implementation of that is still in process right now, but the bill was passed. These are all reforms that we're advocating for a long time, but then when everyone got aligned, they happened fairly, they happened fairly quickly after that point. And so it's really about achieving that alignment between government and industry that takes a while, but then yields quick results after that.
So thank you for this. So Peter, go on.
Well, I think it's important to underline, we speak here on MRO.
Yes.
Just what was just mentioned, Gift City, I think, is an incredibly important step. So for all the fleet financing, India was dependent on leasing companies outside India. The establishment of Gift City as an entity from where leasing can take place, from where fleet financing can take place, it is just another very important building block in the entire ecosystem which is going to be built at this point in time in India. So I think looking at the points you mentioned in your conference, it's about the people part of it, it's about the policy part of it, it's about the MRO part of it, it's about the financing part of it, and there I would say on all these different aspects, you see actually a lot of movement, and Kevin was rightfully so addressing the need for orchestration of that, but it's all moving in the right direction. And the fact that 3 years back there was no fleet financing in India itself. Now it is there through Gift City. So I think we'll be, by the time we're in 2030, we'll look back and say, wow, what happened in India over the past decade? We'll have huge MRO facilities. We have operators who fly all over the world. We have a workforce who is ready to sort of move forward. We have fleet financing in place. We have an ecosystem collaborating, including production. And again, what's happening in other parts of the world with shortage of people, I would say environmental elements driving production outside parts. I mean, the shop Toby is running is just phenomenal. And that's happening in India itself, and the opportunity to expand that. I think we'll look back in a couple of years from now and witness that a massive transformation is taking place.
Thank you, Peter. So, what's the next priority to get, to do the government sort of orchestration? Which sector? Which is it? Airports? Is it airlines? Is it training? What's the bottleneck after MRO? Sally, you don't point to somebody else. Peter or Campbell, why don't you give them the next one?
Let the customers go first.
Yes.
Okay. There's been a massive expansion in the number of airports. It's probably been mentioned already, from 79 to 154 over the last 10 years, with another 50 coming in the next 5. Unfortunately, most of those airports want to be connected to Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. And Delhi is becoming constrained. The current Mumbai is constrained. There's a new airport coming outside Mumbai, but it's not fully connected with ground infrastructure yet. There's potential new terminal development at Indira Gandhi Airport, but the ownership structure of the airport constrains long-term planning for investment in such things. So I think that's probably the up-and-coming bottleneck physically. The other bottleneck, I think, is airspace and air routes. We've already got a huge challenge with respect to on-time performance as an ecosystem, again, because of the constraints of the major hubs and the impact of the fog or monsoon. And I think we need to look at that, because with the doubling of the fleet domestically, there's only so many routes that we can fly.
Yes. No, I appreciate that. Barrett, if you want to be more direct to me, which is like, Mark, I want to come in, just do that, because I'm not shy.
Mark, I'm coming in. I think a real constraint we're all going to face is skilled people. Every time I look out there, whether it's MRO or airlines, we have the engineers, we have the people, the pilots, but the transition from wherever they graduated from to what they can do with us, get into the aviation ecosystem, is a bit of a challenge today. We do not have enough institutes. Perhaps a little brash people, the ones we have are not up to the challenge either. So to me, really speaking, is you'll be able to build a building with bricks and mortar, but can you fit it in with the right people? And I think one of my friends, Ashok, is really doing a great job at GMR, and they built a skill training college. But it's not going to be enough by any stretch of the imagination. I think we need tens of thousands, and we're still looking at hundreds.
Is that a government thing or is that an industry thing?
It's a partnership. Because,
Okay.
you know,
Toby, come jump in.
So that's really important. That's a really important point. The industrial capacity of the country rests on the shoulders of the skill of our people. And for example, in Bangalore, to talk about a PPP, there's a government ITI at the Bangalore airport, which is managed and run by us. So this is the model that's going to explode across India. We'll have more and more private companies partnering the government, taking local ITIs like we've done, and generating the skills. We work with 55 villages. And, everybody talks about Bangalore as a great center of engineering. The greater Bangalore area has the largest cohort of engineers in the world, on the planet. There are 3 million engineers in the greater Bangalore. So that's a big power. But for manufacturing, you need technicians. And these villages are home to some incredible craft traditions. So we take children of craftsmen, and then they train for 3 years to become very advanced aerospace workers, and this is world class. And to the message given earlier by Peter, is across the world you're seeing a shortage of people because post-COVID, a lot of the craftsmen retired and the youngsters don't want to do craft anymore. Aircraft, it's crafted. Spacecraft, it's crafted. So, you need craftsmen.
So the government has a role in encouraging this, working in partnership with the ecosystem to subsidise it, or to...
I think there's a reverse way to not a reverse subsidy. The government owns an incredible network of industrial training institutes, ITIs. The asset is theirs. We don't care about that asset. Let the government own the asset. The government can work with really good local industries, like they've done in Bangalore with us. And then it's a reverse subsidy. We are using our CSR to run that ITI, and it's not just for us, it's for everybody. Even our competitors get their workers from our ITI.
Not too
It's
many.
God's work.
Only the ones that... No, it's a joke. Ashish and then Jürgen. You wanted to come in, Ashish, did you?
Yeah. See, we need to pass the accountability now away from the government to the industry. Government has done in terms of policy and giving the right platform to the industry, but has industry done what industry has to do? So, to put some perspective on the previous below average question, 2015, the penetration was 5.7%. 2005, the penetration was 2.5%. And 2025, the penetration is 11.6%. So, we see the numbers go double, 2x growth in the last 10 years. But on a CAGR basis, 7.7%. GDP growth in India, anyway 7 to 8%. So what has the industry done to exploit this opportunity? India is throwing a massive opportunity over the next 20 years. But as industry, are we thinking big and are we setting the targets? We continue at the same 7.8%, we are going to have penetration of 16% with 200 million people flying. Compare that to China, 770 million people flying. What are we talking about? So we need to take a more ecosystem approach. Airlines, OEMs, MRO, training, all need to come together. Government, I think, has done what they have to do. We need to think big, we need to deliver.
What does that look like, Ashish? What do you mean? Like, you guys are going to walk behind the stage and figure it out?
No, it's about first setting a target. This is not about meeting 220 million passengers flying in 2030. This is about how we can make 500 million passengers fly in 2030. Work backwards. How many airports are required? How many people are required? How many MRO centers are required? Everything is possible.
So I get that. It's a really good way of expressing it. I'm just struggling to see how that's orchestrated, to your point, Campbell. I get the orchestration bit as well, totally. But who is the actor that draws that together? Is it?
It's the people in the ecosystem. So we have the airlines, we have the airport operator, we have the MRO operator. All of us have to work together. But we no longer need to go to the government and say, please do X and Y for us. They've done ample for us.
Right. So I think the investment, the action is happening by the individual players, as I said before. But between us, I think we account for a year's production of these guys and these guys.
Yes.
We're building a 12-bay maintenance facility in Bangalore and a training academy to produce 200 engineers a year. We've got 22 flight simulators being installed in Gurgaon to train pilots. We've got 34 aircraft coming to train pilots ab initio. I'm sure Indigo has got many such similar investments happening. All the parts are coming. It's just how do we make sure that it is sufficient? Is there an incentive and a recognition for the investment and effort that's being made? Is there some vision that's given to others to come in from the private sector aside from us and contribute to this mission? I think that's the gap. Investment is being made by individual parties, but how is it being orchestrated?
No, Jürgen, you did well. Thank you, Campbell. This is core to it, isn't it? Jürgen, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and maybe a step back. Aviation industry is really driven by human capital. And I want to come back to human capital. And I have a very interesting number. During COVID, the aviation industry as a whole reduced their workforce by more than 17%. More than 17%. And this is what we still feel today, because we are missing these experienced people to do the ramp up. In the end, all the constraints come back to not having the human capital, and we are now in a place where aerospace, we will build another 40,000 aircraft. That's at least the demand for the next 20 years. We are here in a country where the growth is higher than everywhere else. A significant portion of our production goes to this country. So I see an incredible chance here to build this human capital, especially with the really great amount of young people getting into workforce every year. So if we join forces, if we have the right universities, Airbus is sponsoring, is participating in Gati Shakti University. I really love the approach of Toby, because aerospace production is really craftsmanship on the highest level. You never will optimize like you do in other industries. So utilizing, having the government support with the right schools, with the right approaches, let the industry, let us support with the right curriculums. We know what we need. So really building up this human capital is for me the foundation that India can take off as we all want it to take off.
Thank you.
So it seems to me we have the cellist, the violin, the band, and everybody here, the trumpeter, but we probably need a conductor for this orchestra. I think that's the missing link here.
I actually think
I'm looking in a direction.
You see, it's not that we are not working on those lines, or we are not conscious of this fact. If you see aircraft maintenance engineers, now I would say about 10 years back, there were our engineers who were not getting jobs. But today, out of those 54 AV schools, we fall short, they are all recruited. Quality definitely is something which we need to work more on. And now with the likes of GMR and other such industry partners coming in, it will improve the quality. If you talk of pilot training with the likes of Air India and Indigo and such companies getting into pilot training on their own and establishing one of the biggest schools in this part of the world, it will definitely ramp up quality amongst others. What we need to look at exactly is where are the gaps, and whether we are training our people to fill in those gaps, because in this space technology is something which is constantly changing and improving, and maybe we today are not doing all of that. We are doing a part of that, and how do we ensure that 10 years down the line, when we are doing much more, do we have the human resources to complement that, those areas? So that is something again which we need to work on, which as a government we need to identify and facilitate. Ultimately, it will come from the private sector, and we have to look at models like the one which Toby was mentioning. These are kind of models which the government has been working with, and I'm sure these will give us the solutions.
No, thank you, and we really appreciate you coming to bring that viewpoint. Thank you, I'm sure everybody does here. Let's just talk a little bit about Ashish here, because MRO is a business where your business, your company, Adani, is putting its money where its mouth is. The airlines are too, but we're just going to ask you first, is that you've made some big moves. I'm going to come on to what they might mean and ask Peter and Campbell something, but just tell us, from Adani's point of view, you've explained the opportunity there in a sense. With the Airworks acquisition with Indamar, you're really putting your money where your mouth is. Why?
I'll tell you. A couple of years back when we started to look into the sector, sustainability from a long term was one of the key criteria, not only in aerospace but also in defense. When we saw deeper what's happening in the industry, there's not an industry, with due respect. Between Airworks, Indamar, some of the other subscale players, it's still a workshop. So when we're talking about growing the Indian aviation industry, it has to migrate from a workshop to actually an industry. And when we talk about 1.5 billion people who are going to potentially fly over the next 15 years, one of the most important element is how do we provide in-house or within India MRO for a faster turnaround to our customers, whether it's Indigo or Air India or the people. And if you break down the whole MRO bucket, what India is doing is predominantly structure, which is 30%. The big chunk, whether it's of engine or components, still going outside the country. So when we talk about the whole dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat, this is more than the Indian aviation industry. But to build an indigenous ecosystem, 70% is getting outsourced. Yeah. So when we talk about the 20 years roadmap or the 2047 roadmap of the Honorable Prime Minister of making India a developed economy, which is going to run at the back of Indian aviation industry, how can we not have an MRO industry which is running into billions of dollars? So that was the thought process of looking at how do we bring some structure, scale, but most importantly credibility. Because for my customer what matters is if the plane is going into a workshop, will it come back safe, the turnaround time will be respected, and will my customer be satisfied? And that is what Adani is going to bring to the table.
Salil.
So I just want to note one thing that Ashish noted is the synergy between commercial or civil and defense. Every successful MRO industry in the world has generally leveraged that synergy. And Airworks is a great example of it. You know, we several years ago put P-8s, our maritime patrol aircraft, into Airworks for MRO with the blessing of the US government. This was for the Indian aircraft. But the US Navy themselves came and saw the quality there, and they were incredibly impressed. The point is this, it's that we can develop capabilities and scale an MRO largely by taking advantage of both of these growth areas in India. If you just focus on one, you're competing with folks in the world who do both, which is a challenge. The other thing is this, in defense you're able to leverage certain capability business cases. So for example, there might not be a business case to bring in landing gear capability for a certain aircraft type just on its own for civil, because the airlines might have contracts already to do that work elsewhere. But if you can do it for defense, which we did with AIESL, then you develop the capability in India. The next time those contracts come up for the airlines, they have the opportunity potentially to contract with Indian MROs. So that synergy is not just at a single point in time, but it grows over time.
Thank you, Salil. Peter and Campbell, how, the movement of somebody like Adani, good news, but you want to do it yourselves, really? Or do you want to do it in partnership, mixture? Is it good news?
I think it's good news because the sheer capacity which is needed and the sheer ecosystem has to be built. Then what part we're doing exactly ourselves or what part is done by Adani's or others or even in joint venture type of configuration, that will all play out going forward. And I think that combination of partnership and competition at the same time is not unique for India. There's other parts of the world where there's airlines having their own MRO facilities, having a both partnership and competitive relationship with some of the OEM providers. That's the nature of the industry we're in. And I think the fact that India is moving into that direction is just underlining the fact that the industry is maturing, that we're preparing collectively for that big step forward. So from my personal view, from Indigo's position, I think it's good news. And exactly how it will play out will be over time, because we need to get that ecosystem sort of going and up and running. And I agree with Campbell's point on orchestration, but to some extent, I think it will kind of organically also come together in partnerships, competition, and way forward. And then we'll see again, and I think Toby's wonderful company is a great example of that. We'll see winners emerging in India, which will attract talent and which will attract other parts to become part of that. And you know, it's a global industry. As significant as we are, we're still part of a global ecosystem in parts and supplies. And if you, I think what is perhaps sometimes missed in the discussion, it's not only what's happening in India, it's also what's happening globally, where the workforce is actually shrinking in many parts of the world, and we have the opportunity to have it here. So I think the opportunity out there, and again for perhaps Adani's or other providers, they're looking perhaps to a global scale and say what other work from other parts of the world we can bring into India and have it done really here. That's not per se what we at Indigo will be looking at. We have plenty of stuff to do ourselves. So I think that overall ecosystem will have a combination of work being done for Indian operators and perhaps even work being done for places outside the world, where outside India, all over the world, where the shortage of labor and the shortage of talent and the shortage of resources really is there, which we can start building up here. So I think that part of the equation sometimes is a bit missed when we look to, you know, third largest economy and so many people. Look what's happening on the global scale. But as large as we are as operators, still we are a relatively small part of the global aviation. And again, there's a lot of parts of Asia which are aging so fast, and where labor shortage is going to be the big issue in the next decade, where the opportunity for India is massive. And then we come back to discussions with government. How do we easily bring in parts? How do we easily bring in planes? How do we have GST sort of matching to all that equation? I think that is the opportunity, which is next to whatever Campbell, myself, and others are doing. That's a huge opportunity, I would say, for the ecosystem.
Thank you, Peter. Toby, you're nodding at me, but I think you're just nodding in agreement. Right, okay, fine. But Ashish, so Peter's very eloquently, Campbell's echoed it as well. You know, Adani moving into the market ground. I'm sure part of your business case is international third-party work. Okay, great.
I just want to make one more comment.
Please.
We have been talking about shortage of labor, shortage of people. What we are not looking at the flip side, we haven't done ample digitization and automation in this industry in India. Yeah. So when we're talking about MRO and with the OEMs and the airlines sitting here, we don't need like an army of people to tell us what will fail. Yeah, this is data analytics, and this is having a data lake where the data is coming and the analysis is happening. So we have to move away from a workshop mindset that once a plane lands into my workshop, let me correct it, to a more predictive and a proactive model. And I don't need 2,000 people. I need 20 good data analysts who can actually make this happen and provide a better customer service to Air India or Indigo or to SpiceJet in the future. So the country is still looking at running the same business model, what we have been running for the last 25 years, rather than saying everyone is talking generative AI, everyone is talking artificial intelligence. We are not imbibing anything. Where's a digital backbone for Indian aviation industry?
No, that's a great point. Great point. I'm going to ask you just one question, actually, before we move on to the next section. The next section is, so Adani's into airports, you're into MRO, you're into manufacturing, profit, airline business. Oh. Well, apart from Indigo, of course. And everybody will follow. Campbell will be there. What about the airline business for Adani? Come on, you're massive. You've got money pouring out of their places. Get stuck into the airline business, my friend. India wants you.
We call ourselves the technology infrastructure company, and we want to leave the airline business to the experts who are doing it very well. We can only be the enablers to them, and we want to be the enablers to them in the future.
So there's just one catch. If you're an airport operator, you can't run an airline.
Well, that's banned.
Yes,
Oh.
that's the regulation.
You'll have to sell those useless airports. Get into the airline business, actually.
We make it interesting.
Yeah, they're ready. Thank you. I didn't know. I kind of knew that, but I'd forgotten it because I'm getting so excited. So actually, we can't expect you to be doing an airline soon. Okay, let's move on from that. That's fun. Let's talk about Made in India. I put a question out which you all know about, which was, will we ever see a Made in India commercial airliner? I don't just mean sort of bolting it together and taking it off the design board from Boeing or from Airbus. And I'm just going to ask Jürgen initially, just because you bought more stuff. How much in your 5 years did you buy for Airbus in value?
Every year about 50 billion.
50 billion. So 250 billion. Has anybody in this room ever spent 250 billion over 5 years? With some rich people in this room. That's pretty dumb. It's like, what? Maybe with your aircraft purchases, maybe. That's kind of, yeah. Okay. So, Jürgen, you've got a great view of India. You've been working in this market for a long time yourself, personally. The Airbus board came here a couple of weeks ago. There's some really interesting signals. These are very obvious signals, I guess. But just tell us, from your perspective, and you've come here to India to run this Indian operation, which is, by the way, lining you up for great commercial opportunities in the future. Remy knows that. So, but just this is a place to be. It's a cool place to be. Campbell's here, Peter's here, everybody's here. Just give us your thoughts on what this means. What does Airbus think about India, and what does this signal to us? You come in, the board coming.
So where do I start? First of all, I'm really excited to be here because for me, we are kind of an inflection point. As I said, the trajectory is great. If we follow up, sky is the limit. And being here for 4 weeks, I had the opportunity to host the full Airbus board. It was for them the first time to go to India as a board. And I think I'm allowed to cite my chairman, Reddy Obermann, which he just recently repeated. He was blown away. It is the professionalism. We visited the shop of Toby. It was the humble leadership while being very integrative, doing sustainable technology. It is what I experienced myself in the last 5 years. Very good at build to print, but we already have diamonds where they are not just copying our parts. No, we are utilizing the engineering capabilities, we are re-engineering the parts and producing them better, more efficient, with better quality. So this is really an exciting place to be. And what we at Airbus want to do, we want to really develop an aerospace ecosystem. And this starts for us clearly at manufacturing, where to step aside, where this is really already a powerhouse in manufacturing. During COVID, as chief procurement officers, we all were struggling with the ramp up, and I can tell you, without the Indian supply chain supporting us, and members are here on the panel, the ramp up would have not happened as it happened. The next step is already assembly. This is something what we are supporting, and right now we have, next example, which was not here 5 years ago, we are assembling complex parts like A220 doors here in India. Then we also want to support maintenance, and there was already a good discussion on this. I will not elaborate more on this one. Another thing is engineering. We are growing our engineering footprint. I nearly had said like crazy. We are hiring up to 20% more people every year in the engineering area because we have the opportunity to get great people, and this is also our contribution to create this human capital which aerospace is needed, but there's a limit what we can do. We want to support leasing, and so really our target is to build this comprehensive aerospace ecosystem and to support also our customers in the next step of growth. So just to sum up, I'm really excited to be here. There are many opportunities, and to come back to one, I think you said final assembly line, right? We are already doing this. It is already decided, and we are on a great trajectory to doing this. We are building a C295 final assembly line. We are also building a final assembly line for H125 helicopter, the most successful helicopter in the world. And this final assembly line is, you could say, a testament to what we believe India is capable of. We decided this while the Indian market for helicopters is very small. We decided this to invest, to do this, while we had no contract, while we had nobody saying, I want to buy these helicopters, but we said, we believe in the growth of India, and we will inaugurate this final assembly line next year in March. I hope we will have great attendance there. So this is what we are already doing, and this is a step by step to really develop this ecosystem with this final assembly line, with more engineering capacities, with building up the production ecosystem. And if I look at Salil, we already talked on another panel about this, and it needs to start from the raw materials. Today, we are more or less importing all the raw materials, which is a big chunk of value creation. So first step is bringing in the raw materials, and there I look at the DGCA, the government. If you want to support this, today, the aerospace industry is a long-term industry. So it's you need to have a lot of start-up investment to get the things going. And we have in India this production link incentive. Why not extend this one to the aerospace industry? This is the growing industry, so this would enable us unlock all these things. This could even support the creation of raw materials. So to sum it up, I see opportunities in all areas. I'm really excited to be here and fire away.
Yeah, I was going to give my pen because you can write that bit. He's giving you a bullet point. Action point. Action point. I know he knows that already. Sorry, Salil.
We've advocated on this point a fair bit. So, from the Boeing standpoint, we've had a lot of force over the last, 5 years. We're forced to get to 10,000 crores of sourcing, of any foreign OEM in India, and to have a joint venture that's doing fuselages here that we do with the Tatas. First to do full-scale determined assembly that we do with a number of suppliers. Toby, of course, has the capability as well. But what I will say is all of this capability builds on top of one another. So, it's fantastic some of the things that Jürgen has noted that Airbus is doing, because they're doing a lot of that with our suppliers. And we're doing a lot of the work we're doing with suppliers that they've developed. And that's terrific, and both of us are working with Lockheed suppliers. And this is all fantastic because it builds the capability in the right direction for India overall, and allows us to start thinking about what is next. And I was going to raise the concept potentially if we want to talk about something like regional transport aircraft. Because as we move from simple assemblies to complex assemblies to working with composite materials, to FSDA or advanced manufacturing techniques, and final assembly, all of this is building in a stepwise fashion to India designing its own aircraft, certifying its own aircraft, building its own aircraft, and maintaining its own aircraft. One of the things that the government has floated is this regional transport aircraft that they will need Indian industry and US industry and French industry and German industry to work together on to try to bring forward. And I wanted to go to actually Toby on this because he's been instrumental in those discussions.
So So,
He's putting you on the spot, Toby. You've got answers, I know.
Look, Peter talked about this earlier. He talked about 42 or 46 ATRs that they have. There is the long-range wide-body international routes. There are all these big, single-aisle routes. But then there are these incredible little towns filled with businessmen and amazing tourist destinations, literally in forests. And what's amazing in India is, during World War II, the Brits built 500 strips all over India that aren't used, but they're there. And if we had that right kind of third-tier aircraft, you could open up India in a way that we haven't even imagined. That last mile. Because you could get to where the tigers are, you could get to where Buddha was born, you could get to amazing sites, you could get 2-3 million tourists every month that we don't dream of from the rest of the world. So there has to be a holistic view, and a small regional transport aircraft will become the critical piece of that puzzle. And then of course you're going to have resorts and everything else, but it will be a massive employment and tax generator for this country.
You going to do it?
No, I'm talking in presence of airlines, government, and an audience.
Yeah, so that as a concept that has been there. There have been some efforts earlier, but I think again now with the right kind of ecosystem, and it is something which was attempted initially by the government solely for some time with a foreign partner. But now I think with the private sector and the government getting into this, and the opportunity is there, because you see the Udan scheme, which is connecting the hinterland with the mainland, is a scheme which needs these kind of aircrafts. And today, if we need around, I would say at least 200 of these kind of aircrafts to effectively implement this scheme. And if we have that kind of numbers, I'm sure with the right kind of policies, getting all the actors in the ecosystem together, it should not be something which we can't do. I'm sure we can.
We can.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's technically possible. I'm just wondering, from an airline point of view, is this a business case? Do you want to do this kind of stuff?
Sure, if the cost of operation are relative to the cost of tickets, and I think that's exactly where this equation comes in, and we have to be realistic. You know, the numbers in India in terms of penetration are still low, and I think part of the shift from rail to air has been facilitated by exactly that philosophy and that policy. And today, tickets in India are perhaps the lowest in the world in terms of, if you compare domestic US or domestic China or intra-European ticket and then compare it to India. So the smaller gauge of planes you go to, in general, the cost per seat is going higher. That's the simple economics of it. And I think it is important for India to develop an aviation ecosystem which is sustainable in the long run. So yes, we're interested in that market. That's exactly why we are the largest ATR operator in the country itself, and doing a lot of the small town flying. And really, we can see the change in these small towns. Whenever we start operating, it's changing really the fabric of these smaller towns and smaller cities. At what point does that reach saturation? We don't know. I think it's important now to look at the holistic system. So yes, we'll have these, but it can only go hand in hand with an increase of capacity at the larger airports, because you want to connect these cities to somewhere. And I think there's a lot of flying from, let's say, tier 2 to tier 2 or tier 3 to tier 3, which eventually will be very difficult to sustain, because it's competing with road and rail. And with all the investments the government is rightfully so making in roads and rail, you'll find tier 3 to tier 3, it's very difficult to maintain that. What will help is connect all these cities to the larger airports in connecting them to the rest of the nation. I think Bangalore and especially Hyderabad is a great example where we have our largest ATR bases out of Hyderabad. And that's connecting to a whole range of smaller towns and cities in that region, connecting through Hyderabad to the rest of the nation. So, but that will require, and I think Campbell was mentioning that earlier, that will require capacity in Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore and Hyderabad to connect to all these cities. So I think the answer is perhaps a bit more nuanced than, hey, there's an opportunity out there. The opportunity should be connected to the larger airports or the larger regional hubs for that matter, rather than connecting tier 3 to tier 3 cities, which now again, with all the investments being made, I think Jaipur is a great example. We fly from Delhi to Jaipur, but the real traffic on board is people connecting over Delhi to Jaipur. There's not many people anymore taking a plane from Delhi to Jaipur because it's like a 3-hour drive and you're on a good day and you're there. So that will start to develop into a connecting ecosystem. Again, very much like other parts of the world. So I'm a big believer in it, but it comes back to an earlier point. It should connect to a holistic view on how we build up capacity in the air and in the ground to connect to that.
Thank you.
Campbell, Tony.
The first point that Peter made about the cost of operation. Small aircraft, relatively short flights, high unit cost. And can we recover enough revenue to cover that cost? I think that challenge is why it's such a subscale part of the market at the moment. Theoretically and intuitively, it is a massive opportunity. Strategically, it is something that is really quite compelling. Socially and from developmentally, from an economic perspective, it is something that I think should be really encouraged. But there's a reason why 47 aircraft, there's a reason why no such aircraft. It's not for a lack of interest and lack of enthusiasm, it's just the business case doesn't really quite stack up yet.
Yes, that's the key actually, the business case. And I mean, just this weekend I flew to Dharamshala from Bangalore, and my Delhi Dharamshala's sector was more expensive than my Bangalore Delhi sector, which means it's profitable on an ATR. And so what created that profitability was the demand. People flying to Dharamshala. Like I said, there's this incredible Indian entire network of cities and towns and villages connected with the Buddha circuit, which would draw in 2 million tourists from Asia every month if we had an ecosystem. But you'd need to serve it, and you'd have demand, which is not a domestic demand, but it'd be a destination. People flying into India to see tigers or to go to the birthplace of Buddha or to go and see some forts that, you know, it's like being in Egypt. I mean, we get more tourists in Egypt than in India. It's a small country. So the critical last mile is that small little aircraft that we need to think about. But there has to be a bigger holistic thing.
Bigger picture. Again, Jürgen, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, and I personally think that this would be a great opportunity for India to have this ATR. And I like what you said, Campbell. The question is, can we bring all the ingredients which we have here in India to make this ecosystem from production, operating, that it is a business case, that this really is supporting the country. I'm positive what I see that it can be done, but
I'm just going to elevate. Avashish, go on, please.
See, we are doing defense manufacturing now for the last 8 to 9 years. Just ticking the box and saying we are putting up a final assembly line neither adds value to the country nor employment. So we need to be very careful what we're trying to do. Are we just making ourselves happy and comfortable? We have a FAL line, so we've done a great deal in terms of indigenization. It's 5% of the total value of the platform. Then RTA is definitely a good opportunity in terms of connecting through Udan scheme, the 200 or 300, but we are still thinking incrementally. The model has to become completely decentralized, and you fast forward 10 years. How can I fly from the parking lot of JW Marriott all the way to Central Delhi? So VTOLs come in. Yeah, this is not about just an 80-seater, this is about the 8-seater or the 6-seater, where the engineering talent of India gets utilized, where we are actually able to see we are doing Make in India rather than just a FAL line based on foreign technology. So we need to be very careful that are we just satisfying ourselves and walking away saying a big tick, but it's 5% value, or we're really building an ecosystem from a long-term perspective?
Yes, thank you, Ashish. Great observation. Of course, it's spot on.
This is a great comment because you're fully right. The file is really nice to look at, but it is just very small value creation. The potential lies in the ecosystem. What I said, starting raw materials, manufacturing, assembling, really having this here, where subsystems, maybe even electronics, where we are not yet there, where we could probably be in India. So this is the first step to build, and at some point then maybe a file could be a logical step, but it's.
So I'm going to put my question about will there ever be an assembly line for a 737 MAX or an A320 in India? I'm going to put that on the shelf because we've got to walk before we can run. Am I right?
So I can say the following: we are not capacity constrained with our files. There we have enough.
The capacity constraint is somewhere else.
It's somewhere else, and the capacity constraint is somewhere else where India can really help us. And this is what we are developing, and this is really creating value. And I would not focusing on 5% where we anyhow have capacity constraint. So we need to do the right thing, and this is what we're doing.
You're giving a bit of a thumbs up to.
Absolutely.
I know you would do that.
No, the real value is in the whole ecosystem.
I would say present tense. On the other 95%, India is supporting, and its performance has been very strong.
Gentlemen, and by the way, diversity, sorry about the diversity, gentlemen, but we'll work on that for next year, okay? I mean, they're all beautiful. Well, they're not diverse, are they? But let's just do a final go around the houses before we stop, because we've got a hard stop, and I really appreciate all of your time. What have you, in a little soundbite, please, what have you taken away from this discussion that you might not have heard before? You do this a lot. You talk together, you've got your teams. Just give me something you've taken away from this discussion. You might all agree. Who wants to start?
I think I'll have the last word of that.
You want the last one? Oh, smart. Barrett.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to take away is it's been a while, and I want to thank Mr. Kipra that we've had a DGC on any discussions ever.
Thank you.
MRO Association has been doing this for years. We've had sometimes some junior officers from MOCA, but never RDG. The greatest takeaway thus for me is the proactive position of our government to go out there in the front of the public on a forum like this and present themselves and be open to all kinds of questions. It shows a commitment. Insofar as my colleagues and friends on the dais, it gives me a little bit of insight, not a deep insight, as to where they're going from here. What is the next step? One thing on the RPA, I'm not convinced that we can handle it. I think, as a person who lives in Mumbai, it used to take us 5 hours to get to Pune. It takes 2 hours on the expressway. And this will increase. I think India will develop a road and rail network which might not be the necessary item for that last mile connectivity to be on air. But I go with Ashish on the eVTOL. I'm not convinced about the 1920-seater plane being built by us now. I think the eVTOL makes sense, and that was the big thing.
That was great. A tiny bit too long for a soundbite. Just saying. Anybody who wants to go next? Yeah.
Not something I was not, or let me put it this way. There is something, if you look at this panel, this represents really aviation in India. And what I was not knowing before, but what I was hoping is we are really super aligned, and especially we also have in the DGCA here, how we want to grow, how we want to progress, how we want to develop the Indian aerospace. So this is something I'm really happy to fully be convinced now.
Alignment.
Yes, the alignment.
So
Just a reminder, usually when we do these panels, it's the MROs talking to one another, the aerospace OEMs talking to one another. Rarely, Mark, do we have somebody pull customers and OEMs and MRO on the same panel. And the value of that is a reminder for me, which is that, in a way, we are all here to serve Campbell's customer to serve Peter's customer, that's the passengers. We're all here to build an Indian aviation ecosystem that enables every single Indian to fly. And I think that's what the importance of these types of discussions brings.
Thank you.
My observation, I've been coming to these things for 50 years in India. And the contrast between then and now is just chalk and cheese. I don't know what the audience think, but certainly my takeaway from this discussion is that now you've got clear focus, you've got a lot of investment, you've got a lot of optimism in the future, you've got action happening, you've got coordination improving, you've got regulation improving, you've got government supporting with an outcome orientation. The constituent that's missing from this discussion is the airports, but I know that if the airports were present here, they would be similarly aligned. It really is the indication of where Indian aviation is in terms of its development, its optimism, its aspiration. And so I think it's really exciting.
Peter?
Yeah, well, I guess just echoing what Campbell said, a great display of shared vision and direction. I guess for you and perhaps some of the others in the room, a bit disappointing in terms of all that alignment. I guess you just want to have a headline, you know, one is contradicting the other, something like that. So I'm sorry for the friends in the media, they were not having any fireworks on stage today, but a lot of alignment. But overall, I think it's very encouraging to see, you know, all the different dimensions nicely coming together. What was new for me, I didn't know about this new Emerald regulation, which was announced actually last night. So that's, to your point, what is new, that's new for me, and I think that's great news.
Thank you, Peter. Ashish?
Yeah, see, the takeaway for me is the policymakers are thinking in a very progressive manner, and they've created a platform for growth for India and the aviation industry for the next many decades. The players on the dais are serious in terms of intent and building the country. The passion exists. I think the focus has to be on execution.
Okay.
So the vision is there, the direction is there, the focus is execute, 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 and we'll be there.
Toby, execution. You're pretty good at that.
No, I think everything's been said, but I mean, if we say the word now, now is the moment, it's the next decade is now, not like the second decade. And we've just got an incredible opportunity as a country, as an industry, and we just have a lot of hard work ahead. Great hard work.
No, I think you're all very used to hard work, I'm just saying.
Thank you.
You wanted the last word, right?
Before you, I think you will have the last word.
No,
But so I think we are on the right track in two things. One, creating the right ecosystem, which I think all the panelists have certified here. And second is with the right kind of mindset. It's both of them have to work together, and you can see the ecosystem is coming in place. The mindset is already there, and now it's for the industry to take it forward from there and to, as Ashish said, we have to have a much bolder vision, and the opportunity is there. And if the industry comes forward with that kind of a vision, we can do much more. As a regulator, I would say that my job is not only promoting this, but at the same time I'm a safety regulator. So my job also becomes much more challenging when I'm operating only 400 or 1,000 planes in the sky, 3,000 planes in the sky. And that is something which we have to ensure that's our bread and butter, I think, for the DGCA.
Thank you. Thank our panel. I'm not going to have the last word. My last word is thank them very much for their time and their passion work. Thank you, everybody. Apart from Campbell, please go and make this ecosystem work, get this alignment going. Or you want a quick, we have a quick snap at the front, please.
Very rarely we get Air India and going in the same train, Airbus and going in the same train. It's very cool.
Take the opportunity.
Excuse me.
So we're going to go straight into the fireside chat with myself and Campbell in a minute. Thank you very much for talking to us, everybody, for your interest. Rhonda, thank you. Thank you.
After very good, we have getting better. After very good.